Thank you for joining XRO, which is India's first AR/VR focused podcast. And today I'm really delighted and happy to have with me Mr. Arvind Neelakantan, who's currently the Tech Evangelist at Epic Games. He's been one of the front movers when it comes to AR/VR MR. He's part of companies such as Disney, Nickelodeon, and also Unity. So thank you, Arvind. It's a pleasure and honor to have you on the show. So just for context to my audience, can you start with a little background, who you are, what you've been doing, and what got you so excited for AR/VR MR?
Sure, man. Thanks, Eddie, for having me on the show. I'm excited to be having a conversation with you. I have been in the gaming space, I would say, now the more appropriate term would be like more real-time space for about 12 to 13 years now. I began, as most South Indians are, as a mechanical engineer. But my interest had always been in animation and in actually telling stories and creating content for it. And during my engineering time, I kind of learned Maya on my own, and then I created a demo reel and then started playing around with animation. And then with my demo reel and with my show reel, I applied for masters in Drexel University in Philadelphia. And then I did my masters for about 2.5 years over there. But somewhere in the middle, in the middle of masters, I realized that my interest lies more in games than in animation, primarily because I didn't have any patience for animation, especially the rendering time. So I kind of pivoted and I in fact took a course in game technologies and blah blah, and then that led me to a job in Los Angeles with a small startup company, but it was founded by one of the giants in the gaming industry, Nolan Bushnell, who was the founder of Atari Games, if you're familiar with him. So he had a startup called Uwink. So Nolan Bushnell, along with his son Brent Bushnell, we were I was in a small startup where even before touchscreens, we had we kind of homemade or homebrewed a touchscreen for restaurants to play multiplayer games at that time. And then there was a short stint, and from there I joined Nickelodeon Games again in Los Angeles. I was doing MMORPGs for the most part, or multiplayer, massively multiplayer online role-playing games for Nickelodeon and Nickelodeon's IPs, which include your Neopets and TMNT, and even made a game for Dora the Explorer and whatnot. But I was a full stack engineer, which meant client, server, tool development, database, blah blah, all of those things. So I was there. Then from there I returned to India because I'd never worked in India before, so I just wanted to know what it was like. So I was a technical architect / lead architect for Disney, where I was leading the AR, VR, and the lab part of Disney, along with the mobile games division. Then I joined Unity, where I was because I'd worked in game space for a while, I thought it was a good time to also teach the community about how to make games. And from Unity, now I'm with Unreal, where I've been there for almost 10 months now. Here I'm an evangelist, a technical account manager, head of tech, whatever you want to call, for India and Southeast Asia, where I'm helping game companies and anyone who wants to use real-time tech to start using this tech for their purposes. And right now, because Unreal Engine itself is being used in a number of verticals, my old passion of animation is coming back to me, because now I don't have to wait for render time. All of that is done in real time. So that's not so brief introduction about me.
Thank you, Arvind. Thank you for sharing your journey here. You've been an exciting journey. You've been part of so many companies, and you mentioned that at the core, you're a mechanical engineer and storyteller who loved animation. Right now, you have moved from there to Epic Games, which is one of the biggest companies. For me also, my journey has been, I've been vested in the creative industry. I used to play for a rock band for 15 plus years. I've composed for a couple of Bollywood films. I used to compose for a lot of advertising jingles and stuff like that. So I have a production house where I used to create content. 2015, I discovered virtual reality when one of our clients said, can you create live action virtual reality content? And they wanted us to push the boundary and create stereoscopic content. And in 2015, there was just a few 360-degree stereoscopic cameras. There was Ozo, there was Google, which had Odyssey, and all of these were like super expensive. And but I read a little bit about virtual reality, and I was in awe of the technology and what it could do. So I invested a lot of money. We built our own 16 camera 360 rig, got the open source files from what was available on the net, what Google was doing with Odyssey. They had a 12 camera rig. We added top bottom, created a complete 360 degree rig. This was 2015, and I directed, produced India's first stereoscopic VR horror short film called Crackle in 2016. How do you think AR, VR, MR, and all of these other converging tech going to impact storytelling and content creators? And what should the studios, content creators, and the ones who are vested in the creative industry look out for?
Well, AR or VR or XR, whatever you want to call it, it's a technology, and it will enable you to tell your story. And there's different ways in which you can use the tech. And I'm always a believer in not using the tech for the sake of using it just because it's there. Just you don't need to use it for a movie. But it has a lot of tools around it that enables you to tell your story. So, for example, let's talk about your regular feature film. And one of the ways that virtual reality has been used quite extensively is through location scouting in VR for places that don't exist yet, or will never exist. So, for example, we have Mandalorian, or we have even a lot of movies like The Lion King, where the entire set was made in Unreal or made in a real-time engine, and directors could put on their virtual reality glasses to go to kind of scout the location to see like what place works best for them. You also had the other way on the other side of virtual reality, where entire movies were made with virtual reality, like the ones that you just made. And that is a kind of a different medium of even storytelling, because that kind of reminds me of this example where in the early 20th century or late 19th century, people were just still figuring out how to make movies using a camera. So, but they were still used to place. So they used to just place a camera in a single place, and they used to act in front of the camera. And then someone realized it actually move the camera. And that took like 30 years for folks to realize, since the motion pictures came into being. And for me, virtual reality based movies, or in that early 19th century or rather early 20th century or late 19th century era, where folks are still trying to figure out what is the grammar or what is the vocabulary of telling a good story using virtual reality. And similarly, so it's not like, it's virtual reality as a medium to tell stories is definitely somewhere that's interesting. And using virtual reality in order to tell your regular stories, like regular rectangular framed movies, is also something that's very that could be used because of the immersion that you get out of it. And this is the technology, and real-time tech is here to stay. The realism that you're able to get out of it, the instant feedback that you're able to get out of it, it's here to stay. I don't think no one is ever going to go back. In fact, one of the Russo brothers recently commented on how when they used Unreal Engine in one of their projects, it was like going from filmmaking 1.0 to filmmaking 5.0. Right. So I think for storytelling and for filmmakers, it's inevitable that this is going to be there. So it's better to just quickly pick up all of these tech so that you could use it for your own in your own creative ways to tell stories.
Yes, I completely agree that it is the future of storytelling. But when do you see that transition happening where people see the benefit of interactive content? Because for over 100 years, we've been restricted to passive entertainment where we just sit and watch. That's it. But now we're getting into the space where it's going to be interactive. In the future, there's going to be like we'll touch, feel stuff and stuff like that. So it's exciting. But how do we kind of nudge these ad agencies, the producers to kind of acknowledge that this is the tool of the future?
On that front, right? Like, I don't think we are behind in that. I'm already talking to a number of movie studios, and they're using Unreal Engine for previous purposes, and they've been doing that for like about 2 years now, since for a while. And even the biggest movies or the biggest movie studios in India have been using this. Like, for example, Technicolor has been was part of the Lion King movies. and they are also, and they have been doing some work and in using Unreal Engine. So I don't think it's a matter of, I don't think you need to nudge anyone to start adopting this, because people are already adopting it. Uh, when it comes to virtual reality itself, in India specifically, you're there's just a general drought for getting VR headsets, for example, right? You can't get it's very hard to import your VR headsets. You just have to have someone bring it for you from a foreign country or whatnot. But people are still finding ways to start using virtual reality. You do find Vive kits and Rift, Oculus Rifts and whatnot lying around in those places. So I think. So one of the things that we have been doing is we see an organic adoption of virtual reality and real-time tech in filmmaking. But what we are trying to do in Epic India and Southeast Asia is to act as a catalyst. So we are working with a number of studios to educate them. So it's not just the ones who are attending conferences who get to know these things. We go to studios and we educate them. And in India, to bridge that gap, we have been providing free training for pretty much any studio who wants to get used to who wants to use Unreal Engine and they have heard of it. It's like Mandalorian is a great example. So everyone is like, oh my god, like how do I do it? So we provide them with training. We also provide them with free virtual machines if they lack the machine or the hardware to run Unreal Engine on their desktop. Again, it's inevitable. Like we're already seeing an organic adoption of virtual reality in filmmaking, and what we are doing at Epic India is to act as a catalyst to have more people and as many people as we can to use this tech for their own creative purposes.
Right, fair enough. So you mentioned, obviously, it's got to be the larger people, because most of the time, it's the ones who know about the technology or invested in the space are the ones who are pursuing it, or very few people, at least of the interactions that I have had, But it's nice to know that there's this, you saying that there's a larger organic adoption of AR, VR in the country. And then there is a problem with the technology itself, because at least here in India, the accessibility is a problem, because there are people who are like, suppose if you want to acquire a HTC headset or a Quest or things like that, people are like retailing over here on Amazon and stuff like that for double the rate. So there is a few problems which I think which needs to be sorted. So you mentioned about the production houses looking at XR for previews, but can you give like a more example, because you are interacting with production houses and you're saying you're trying to build a community. Can you give some more examples of studios who are currently building some stuff? And you, in the beginning of the conversation, you also mentioned that you created this 14 short challenges. Would you also like to talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah. So so one of the things, like we and when I first joined, we were trying to find shops who are using Unreal Engine at all. And then while doing our discovery, we realized that there are a lot of folks who are using Unreal Engine, because I was of the same I had the same assumption that that not a lot of people are using real-time tech for movies, which turned out to be false. And we were seeing a lot of bigger shops, boutique shops, mid-sized shops who are already using Unreal Engine, and India is a services sector, so people don't necessarily talk about it because it's for movies that they cannot talk about. But in our discovery, we did discover quite a lot of studios. For example, there is in Chennai, there's a studio called Hexar Factory who have been doing virtual production for about 2 years. And Bangalore, we have a studio called Vega Studios who have been doing virtual production and also building their own computer graphics pipeline for real-time engines. And I can keep going on and having found about 14 of these studios, and in Trivandrum there's a studio called Tilt Labs who also been doing virtual production. So we keep finding these pockets of studios all over the country. So what we want to do was handpick 14 of them right now, and we are running this thing called the Short Film Challenge. Now, Short Film Challenge is where we have paired most of them with a production house. Production houses are people who have directors and have the story, and we are essentially challenging these 14 studios to come up with the best looking and best story driven short films about 3 to 6 minutes long. And all of this Short Film Challenge involves people all of the studios interacting with each other. It's not going to be siloed. We have feedback sessions about the story, about the look, about the creativity of part of on all of it. But we have some of the biggest names in the country of directors and studios who are working on it. And we are creating this community so that people don't live in a silo, because almost every one of these studios think that they are the only ones who are doing what they're doing, or they are missing a puzzle or missing a piece of the puzzle about certain piece that another studio has already probably do a lot better. So that's how we're growing this community and making sure that there's a lot of interaction. And soon, and movie making is it's a time consuming process. Feature films especially take a year at least to come out. And so I think in the next year or two, you'll start seeing, the names will start surfacing of studios who more openly are using real-time tech and Unreal Engine, rather than right now where it's more a bit behind closed doors.
It's great that we have a team like Epic who's kind of trying to build a community and creating an open working environment, because you rightfully pointed out, I mean, the problem with the entire, I think it's not just the entertainment industry. I think globally, I mean, it all across all business sectors. I mean, the problem is that we try to work in silos, but I guess that is going to be breached in maybe like a few years, because then there's these technologies such as blockchain, things like that, which is coming, which is going to like advocate more decentralized way of working and more sharing, because I guess that's the only way we can create a system which is more inclusive and which is beneficial for all. COVID, almost for a year plus we've been sitting at home. The biggest industry, the industry which has been impacted the deepest is obviously the entertainment industry. Theaters have been shut. The other side, the gaming industry, OTT is doing really well. Digital medium is doing great.
Right.
What is the future of content creation, and how do you think this full halt of work for almost a year is going to impact the entertainment industry? Is there going to be a shift? Because traditionally so far in production studios, we used to look at offline editing software, online editing softwares. Today we have gaming engines which offer the same kind of workflow, or almost cheap or almost free to use. How is this going to impact the future of content creation?
Yeah, I mean, with COVID, one of the things that we have been seeing is it's multi-user collaborative techniques that has been available for a while is now being embraced a lot better. And of course, it has affected and definitely it's one of the industries that definitely got hard hit. But people, it is a creative industry, and we are seeing people using creative methods in order to still continue making films and continue telling their stories. For example, we already have people who are, in fact, in Chennai, again, there was a studio called Stage Unreal, which is run by Manoj Paramahamsa, who's a cinematographer. And during COVID, they created a short film, like a music video of using Unreal Engine, and it was all rendered in real time. But the cool thing about it is the VFX supervisor was working from home. Like, he had just a monitor, and he was essentially, using the multi-user tools built in the engine, and of course Zoom, in order to then direct the shots. The only people who were on the stage was the mocap performer and the assistants who were assisting in the mocap part of it. But everyone else, like the camera person, the cinematographer, the VFX supervisor, the director, the sound mixer, the editor, all of them were working remotely, and they still were able to produce a shot, right? So I think we have the tools, that of course tools can be improved upon, but I think we have the tools today that allow you to still continue to tell these stories without being completely hindered by it. But it's all about like who gets to adopt this, how do you get exposure to this. And that's why again, once again during the COVID times, we had the fellowship program in Unreal Engine where we invited the VFX supervisors from all around the world, including from India, to get trained in Unreal. We also had folks in India also getting trained for free all during the COVID time, so they can use this downtime to upskill themselves. So it is, and because of COVID, I don't want to say thanks to COVID, but because of COVID, we are seeing a more a shift in the way in which people are working, in which people are embracing this tech in order to start, in order to have this kind of remote working environment, and people are now okay with it. Of course, it never is equivalent to physical presence, but at least there is a way for you to continue working, and it's not a complete halt.
So, do you see this shift lasting for a longer time? The shift of the way we are using tech, because there is this transition, slow but gradual transition, if you see, where people are leveraging more of technology. And it's not just about Unreal Engine, for creating content. There is artificial intelligence which is being leveraged, and so on and so forth. So, how important is the role of technology going to play in the future of storytelling? And again, possibly specifically Unreal Engine. How important is that going to be for the future of content creation?
Some of the things that Unreal Engine has been doing has been pretty revolutionary. So, cutting down on render time is something that's huge. You don't need these huge render farms anymore. You're able to get final pixel right out of Unreal Engine. The amount of, and that I would say is more like a side effect. But the more important things that you also get through Unreal Engine is the ability to iterate so fast. Earlier, when I was talking to an animation studio, to make a lighting change, it would take about a week if the creative director came in and wanted to change the lights in the scene. And they change the light, the artist goes in, changes the light, waits for the render, goes through another pass, and then does the final quality render. Now, if you want to change a light, you just change it. It's done. The size of the team also goes smaller. So a smaller team is able to produce a lot more content, which means that especially folks who are making like YouTube content, for example, are able to be a lot more prolific because they're able to have their smaller teams creating more and more content, which means it's equivalent to generating more and more money out of, or being more profitable out of it. We are also seeing Unreal Engine being used for kind of showing the actor and the performers about where they are in a particular scene. Because earlier, if you were in a green screen, you kind of had to imagine there's a monster in front of you and the monster is angry, but the performance can never be as realistic as an actor actually encountering a monster. But with Unreal Engine and using virtual reality or even LED volumes, you're literally able to place a monster in front of the actor, which means you're able to get a lot more performance out of the actor. You're also able to use it for live streaming mocap. So instead of having an actor being in mocap and then slapping a mocap character on top of them offline, you're able to see the actor and the mocap performance in real time composited on the final environment. And you're all and the list goes on and on. Like Previs is one of those places. Production visualization is one of those places. Architectural visualization or set creation is also another place. So it is here to stay. And Epic Games I would say Unreal Engine as a tool for creators, and it's available for free. And the entry barrier for you to start using Unreal Engine for your production purposes has never been lower before.
The general notion is, at least for when you talk about new technology, augmented reality, virtual reality, people think, oh, it's too expensive. And the problem is there with distribution, there's problem with monetization. How easy or simple is Unreal Engine for the people who are non-coders? There is a blueprint you have for visual code, but do you have plan to make it more easier for content creators? And do you think that we will start seeing the content creators will start seeing big monies when it comes to creating content? There's a space.
First of all, Unreal Engine is free for filmmakers. So if there's really literally no money that you have to pay. because and that's one. So the entry barrier is low, like
Right, right.
nothing over there. And for artists and non-coders and non-programmers, Unreal Engine we have been building a lot of tools, and Blueprint is a great example of that. It's specifically meant for folks who want to embrace Unreal Engine and contribute more into the production process. So artists or creative directors or UI artists, they can also work in Unreal Engine. So there are tools that and it is a very artist friendly tool. In fact, the grammar or the vocabulary of what you would see in a traditional digital content creation tool like Maya or Blender kind of translates really well into Unreal Engine also. So it is a very artist friendly tool, and like I said earlier, because artists are also able to contribute more into this production process, the team also becomes smaller. Because artists are also able to create this content, and it's not just programmers, it's not just tech savvy people who are implementing things. So there's a lot of tools like VFX creation is friendly in Unreal, like using Niagara, or if you want to write your own shaders, you can use the material editor. And editing is also a breeze using Sequencer. You have a lot of tech that connects external hardware into Unreal quite easily, which used to be a domain of the technologist or a programmer. Now it's super easy using LiveLink. So you're able to, there are more and more tools. Of course, it can be improved upon, but there are more and more tools specifically looking at artists and non-coders within Unreal Engine.
There is this movement going on from green screen to LED for virtual production. There is. I think you guys are partnered with Green Rain and Famous Studios to set up something over here. Then Korea is setting up a virtual production. Has already set up a virtual production studio. Media Monks, I think, is doing something with you guys in Delhi. When do we have like a virtual production here in India, and how will that transform filmmaking?
It's coming. It's definitely a place where you will start seeing movies using LED volumes. In India specifically, it'll take a few months, if not a couple of years, before it becomes mainstream. And the reason I'm saying that is because.
So you're saying by the end of the year we'll have something over here?
I'm saying a few months, if not a couple of years. So it is a slow process. I'm not saying it's got to be here by the end of the year. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's again because of procurement. While the tech is here, the software is here. For anyone independently to set up a LED volume is an expensive affair, and they got to really invest in it. At the same time, importing in India is quite painful. If you want to import LED panels, if you want to import processors, if you want to import in-camera camera tracking equipment, all of that is, in addition to that being a fairly expensive deal itself, the import duty itself is quite big. It's almost 30 to 40%. Production houses typically have to look at ROI. They have to see like how will they get back the money out of it. And that's kind of what we're trying to solve here. We are educating people and directors and VFX supervisors to say like, here, it is going to save money. So if there is a production house or a movie company that wants to build this LED volume in India, they have to make sure that they are able to get their return on investment of that. And that's kind of it looks like a catch-22, but we're trying to solve that equation by showing as many people as we can the advantages of using LED volumes in camera VFX using Unreal Engine, so that more and more production houses or more and more movie directors and studios want to embrace this tech, which means that there is a demand side created, which means the supply of LED volume will then show up because of the demand.
So you have been invested in the space for the longest time. Would you like to talk about some experiences or content which has really caught your attention? People who are like really pushing the boundary with content creation. Maybe you can also talk about meta humans and photorealistic content.
So let me take this example. I told you about the fellowship program and folks who graduated out of the fellowship program, which includes myself, but folks who graduated from the fellowship program, which included Srinivas Mohan and Yugender and Manoj Paramahamsa, They worked on this really cool LED volume project in Hyderabad for a music video called Cab Stories, and I can link you to that. But that's cutting edge for India. Like they were able to they were able to kind of innovate frugally by sourcing LED panels out of India. They were able to get camera tracking systems somehow, and they were able to create that music video. It looks fantastic because you'd never be able to tell that it was LED volume or Unreal Engine unless someone tells you to. A lot of things that creates this kind of immersion, like reflections, like real looking reflections. The main person in the music video is a lady who wears like shiny jewelry, shiny clothes, is on a car which has shiny surface on top of it, and you have dancers all dancing behind her who are all wearing like shiny clothes. And you would never for a moment believe that all of that is in a digital environment or an LED volume unless someone tells you. So that's definitely a work that I would highlight, saying that that's pretty cool. Let me link you to that because it's definitely worth seeing.
I get excited for these kind of things because I hope the same excitement gets passed on to a legacy traditional entertainment industry, and I hope that those big players kind of pick on these tools and leverage the opportunity that it presents. We're getting into volumetric space, we're getting into a whole lot of haptic feedback test and things like that. Would you kind of like to talk a little bit about that? How are you looking at the future of content creation? Because do you think that in this decade we're gonna move out from or restricted 2D medium and get into the 3D world?
3D, 3D as in like interactive 3D. I think we are already seeing that. For example, in Fortnite, we recently had an Ariana Grande concert, which was fairly new, right? Like and people and players, you could just go in there and you were in a concert, you were listening to her sing. But at the same time, you're also having an interactive experience where you are shooting a monster and you're running around Ariana Grande, and it is in 3D. And previously, and that had like a few million views or a few million plays, I would say, gameplay on Fortnite. And similarly, there was another concert by Travis Scott, which had a similar kind of an experience. And I think that is the future. That is one of the futures for sure, where you will start seeing more and more interactive content, which is more playable, which will be consumed by your everyday folks. It's not just restricted to gamers and whatnot. At the same time, and that's kind of what leads to the conversation of the metaverse, where we are heading towards this age of metaverse, where it's not just where you're watching movies or playing games, but you're actually going to be starting making movies and making games, making products, having conversations as if you are in the real world. Like, you mentioned metahumans, which is definitely a step towards the metaverse that we're talking about. And in the next decade or so, I think it will definitely be there. I think we will see a shift of people kind of using the snow crash term of just goggling in, and you're able to then get into the metaverse in order to start not just consuming content but making content.
Yeah, obviously the tech is this. It's like a double-edged sword, It's got this pros and it got its cons. It's so exciting that maybe in the far out future, maybe like a 40-50 years, we'll be able to possibly simulate everything, and we could get close to simulating reality itself. That conversation gets interesting and it gets very scary at the same time. We'll stick to metaverse.
No, it's not even 40 years. You're seeing it today. Like you're seeing it right now.
Yeah, I mean in a way where we simulate our entire physical reality, where it gets you are not able to distinguish between the physical and the digital reality. Metaverse, the one company which is, I think, the At the forefront is Epic Games. You guys have invested $1 billion. You spoke about Travis Scott, 350 million in Fortnite or more. I don't really know the exact numbers. You already have that the captive audience over there. What are your plans for metaverse? And for my audience, could you actually describe what the metaverse is? What is it gonna do? What is it gonna look like? How is it gonna impact all of us?
I mean, no one really knows what the metaverse is going to look like, frankly speaking. But we are getting there. We know what we want, but we don't know what it looks like. And so, Fortnite is a good example of a metaverse, or a direction where metaverse is heading, where it's not just games that you're playing, but you're hanging out with friends. You're going to concerts. You're watching movie premieres inside this world with your friends. So that's one kind of metaverse example. Other things like Minecraft and Roblox are all metaverses on their own. And fundamentally, the idea of metaverse is it'll be like the internet, where today if you go to Gmail or WhatsApp, you don't say I'm going to the internet. You just use Gmail, and that's kind of what metaverse is going to be. Even today, when you're using Google Maps, you're kind of using a metaverse version of augmented reality, where you do have a phone and it's showing you in real time what your position is, and you're following the arrow even without looking at the road, because you're just literally looking at the phone and just kind of walking or driving, because that's where you're heading, right? And that's kind of what will be the kind of almost invisible transition to everyone using metaverse. And today, and more people are beginning to understand the power of using, of being in a real-time 3D environment and being in a highly realistic environment, in order to sell their products, in order to tell their stories, in order to make movies, and that's kind of what it is. There is no one definition of this is what the metaverse is, but in a science fiction world, it is this 3D or a real-time 3D environment which is very, very realistic looking, and and you are able to do pretty much everything that you would do in the physical world in the metaverse, and more, because there are really no physical laws that's bounding you, but you could do a lot of things, and it's got to be advantageous to everyone being in the metaverse, for all the things all the reasons I just mentioned earlier.
The legacy tradition content creators, entertainment studios, who are still stuck with the old ways of functioning, what would you tell them? And what would you tell my listeners, enthusiasts, students who are excited for this but have not taken the first step? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, to answer your first question about for folks who are reluctant to use this tech, I think it's kind of inevitable. I think they will organically pick it up. Today we're doing a podcast, which was not a word that existed a few years ago. But we're doing that, and people are hopping on it. People are getting used to Zoom because that's inevitable. You don't want to not use Zoom anymore. You either pick it up today, and then be one of the folks who's leading it or doing it. Otherwise, you will pick it up later, but you'll already have a lot of players in it. So it's a good time to start picking it up. Which then brings us to second point, how do you have students or anyone who's enthusiast to start using it? Like I said, the entry barrier has never been low. Unreal Engine is free. Unreal Online Learning, which is a channel, has thousands of hours of content, nicely curated. All of that is free. In India, we provide free education, free training, instructor-led education for anyone who wants to learn Unreal Engine. Again, that's free. For anyone who is still thinking about buying a PC but is not really sure while getting trained, we provide free virtual machines. Again, that's free. And just get in touch with me or any of the folks at the friendly Epic Games India Southeast Asia team, and we're more than happy to hook you up. So that's where we are. We are in this very exciting period where everything is free. Literally, the only thing that's stopping you from not learning is you, but everything else is around, is there around for you. So get in touch, and we'll be more than happy to enable you to use Unreal Engine and to get on this new wave of tech.
Lovely. Through my conversations, the one thing that I stress on and I repeat I mean, through all my podcasts, is that we are living in the most exciting space. Obviously, there is the downside of technology, but it's so loaded or the positives. Today we have the same knowledge which was available to the richest person in the world, just maybe, and exclusively only for him, and nobody else had it. But today internet is a repository of knowledge, and we've got MOOCs, massive open online courses, education for free. The only thing that stops you is your desire and intent. And my last question: what's the roadmap ahead for Epic, and what's the roadmap for you as an individual? What is it that Mr. Arvind Neelakantan wants to be remembered as?
Wow, that's a very long-term goal, and there are a lot of things that I want to get done. For me, from a technology point of view, I do believe in real time being the next thing. And in India and Southeast Asia included, it's all about creating this impact of saying I am able to free myself and start telling my stories. And if there's one thing that anything that I can do, and that's kind of what my entire journey has been through the last few years, is to enable as many people as I can to start using this tech, because it truly does remove the shackles and start just as the way we were able to democratize game development, where it's now super easy. Anyone in a basement with a computer can make a game. And that's kind of the transition that we're seeing in pretty much all the industries. We are seeing it in films, we're seeing in automotive, where we are seeing a plethora of electric scooters, for example, all being startups, which is unheard of, right? Earlier, you had to have like a Bajaj or a Hero to make scooters. Today, you have like anyone and everyone making an electric scooter. And all of that, I think it's leveraged by the use of real-time tech. You're able to design collaboratively, you're able to do reviews collaboratively, and no one is constrained geographically anymore. And if there's any one thing that I can, through my journey, if I had touched the life of someone who said I use real-time tech and that's why I am here, I am who I am, that's great. And that's pretty much what we're looking at, what I would be pretty happy about. And that's the educator and the teacher in me talking about it.
Beautiful. Wish you the very best for it. And we need more evangelists such as yourself. And I'm sure you've touched lives of lots and lots of people. And those people in turn will touch lives of lots and lots of people. But because I guess that's the way it is. It's a butterfly effect. It's a network effect. When you do bad, it spreads like shit. You do good, it spreads like, it creates a beautiful world. And we need a beautiful world. And so thank you for being part of the podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye bye. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me, Eddie.
Yeah.